talking about keep sowing. You know, a lot of times we think everything needs to work out in our life perfect. If you're like me, you want everything to go right all the time. None of us like ups and downs. None of us like challenges. We want things to go right all the time in our life. But did you know life isn't that way? A matter of fact, usually things go wrong more times than we would like. But did you know things don't got to go right all the time for you to be successful? As a matter of fact, you only need something to go right here, something to go right here, and the something to happen in a positive note in this way, and your life can turn out pretty good. You could have a lot of downturns. You could have a lot of headwind in your life. You could have a lot of failure. But did you know that if a few things go right in your life, God can really take you places? The other day I was sitting out on the church patio here. As you know, we live up front. But I was sitting out on the patio. It was one of those days, I don't know, probably a Monday or Tuesday, who knows, but I was contemplating a little bit. I was sitting out there, it was a little earlier, and I was having my coffee, and I was in one of those down moods. Have you ever been in one of those a little bit where you're thinking a little bit about your life? You're playing over the things that have went wrong? How that you wish that this would have happened a little bit differently? How that you wish that you weren't a part of this struggle or failure? Whatever it may be for you and your life. But I was thinking about, and I was sitting there, and then after licking my chops a little bit, all of a sudden I saw this. It was like snowing. It was 75 degrees, so it shouldn't have been snowing, but it was, you know, it was coming flying through the air, but what I learned that it was this tree. There was this wood tree. What kind of tree is that? Cottonwood tree. Well, there's a tree across the creek over here, a pretty big tree. And what happened is that these trees, they blow these seeds. And what happens is that it looks like a lot of things are happening, but it's, let's not have no movement in the sanctuary right now, please. But I was looking at this. I was snowing. I saw that these seeds were putting off these things. I began to look it up later, and they say a cottonwood tree can put off 25 million seeds, one tree. But then as I start to look at it, it was coming through. It was very dense. What I started to think about it, did you know it only takes one of those seeds to land right in the right soil for a tree to be produced? 25 million seeds are flying through the air. But as I thought about this, I was thinking, most of these aren't going to make it. Now I was sitting in my chair, having my coffee, and literally it was thick. A big tree across the creek there. And I was thinking, wow, this could be a lot of trees, but if it all worked out right. But I began to look at it and say, it ain't going to work out right, because I've been seeing this show before. I remember last year and the year before. Now, these seeds are a menace. They get in the cracks of the concrete or the blacktop, and they spring up for a moment, but birds or John David, or we go out and we pick them, whatever. Most don't make it. But did you know that a few do make it? As a matter of fact, all along the creek at one time, if you've been here before, all back there, it was like a forest at one time. And we know that these trees have a way. Let's not have no walking in the sanctuary right now, please. We're talking about sowing. We're talking about how it's important for you and I to keep sowing and doing our part. Now, as I thought about that, as I looked at this and as I thought about all the different, the seeds flying, knowing that these wouldn't take root, I began to think about my life. As I said a moment ago, I was contemplating my life, thinking about the failures, thinking about the things I did wrong, thinking about if I could change things, that things would be different, that I'd have more success, I'd be farther along in my career, whatever it may be. But then I began to think that only one or two things have to go right for God to work things out. One time I was talking to my dad, and I began to, this was, I don't know, a year or so ago, I began to say about all the things that maybe I did wrong, or the different things that I wish were different. And I began to, my dad's pretty rough, actually. He would probably agree, yeah, you've been bad. But, but I began to share with him how, I wish this was different, I didn't make this mistake. Then he piped up. He lives in Florida. He piped up and he said this, he says, yeah, but John, what about all the things that did work out? Listen, what is going on in your life that you're looking at your life and you're saying, I wish it was a little different in this way? I wish that I was successful in my earlier years in relationships. I wish I didn't have that downturn in that job and it would have lasted a little longer. I wish that somehow God would have bailed me out here. I wouldn't be where I'm at today. I'd be farther along. Listen, friend, I don't know where you're at this morning. I don't know what you've been through. But it's easy to get discouraged when you don't see what's happening in your life. I was reading a scripture here. It's talking about not being troubled. And the title is Keep Sowing. One verse this morning. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God. Trust also in me. Now listen, this is possibly an elementary verse. You say, I do trust God this morning. But here's what was going on. During this time that Jesus was about to be crucified, was about to leave this earth, and what was going on is that Jesus was worried that the disciples would not get their acts together when he went to heaven, would somehow get discouraged and not understand all the difficulties they've been a part of and not continue on. He was worried that somehow that their hearts would be so troubled that somehow the enemy would confuse them so much that the enemy would get the best of their life. Do not let your hearts be troubled. I was reading what trouble means. To be troubled is nothing more than thinking about failure. It's to be agitated. When you're troubled, you're worried. When you're troubled, you have turbulence in your life. Have you ever felt like you've had turbulence? When you're troubled, you're perplexed. As a matter of fact, to be troubled is to have a mental distress. It's to be bothered, pained. Now, to trust God. Stay with me for a moment. I want to lay this foundation because I want to get to something that I think can help us this morning. Then it says, trust in God, trust also in me. What does trust mean? To trust is to keep standing. Jesus wanted you to make sure that you're not troubled. Friend, it's easy to be troubled when you look at all the different things that you go through. Now, to trust is to keep standing, is to have confidence. It's to have a firm belief. As a matter of fact, to trust is to have a strong reliance on God. It's an expectation. To trust is to have an anticipation, or it's a hope. What are you struggling with that you don't really think there's a lot of anticipation going forward in your life? you've seen this movie before. And you don't really think much is going to change. You don't see a bright future for you. We're talking about keep sowing. Friend, before I get into a few quick thoughts, I'll say it again. A lot don't have to go right in your life, but a few things that do can really change the makeup of your life. Here's what I want to say. Some of you are looking like me, like that day as you're sitting out there wondering, wow, wish things were different. I wish I would have married that person. I wish I would have quit that job. I wish that I wouldn't have made that bad financial deal. I wish that it could have been different. And today you're wondering, can it be different? Today you're wondering, what can change for you? Can that relationship get better? Can good days, bright days be ahead of you? You know, I kind of broke this up into 4 different things. What are the things that trouble you in your life? What are the things that you have hard trusting God with? God knew that you would have trouble. What was he talking about here? I kind of broke them up into faith, family, finances, and future. Kind of the most important things in our life. When you think of the things in your life, the most important things that you struggle with, let's quickly look at faith. I'm going to categorize these together in things. When you think of faith, you're thinking of those things that are holding you back, that are hurting your life. God wants you to have a relationship with him so that you can have a better life. You can get over that addiction. But faith, he says, don't be troubled. Trust in God. I remember there was a time in my life that I didn't think I could ever get over an addiction. I used to hitchhike regularly back and forth as a youngster from Chicago area till the state of Washington. And I didn't really think that I could beat this thing. I didn't really think that I could have a normal life. As a matter of fact, they told me I won't. I'd be in jail or this. I didn't really think it could work. Think about that tree for a moment. I think of all the things that I was known as someone that always got in trouble. So quit high school, one that wasn't going to make it. But then let's think about that tree. Did you know that there's a lot of good things in your life happening and you don't even know it though? Let's think about those things that are flying through the air, the prayers that you prayed that are seeds flying through the air that you're wondering, is anything ever going to take root? You know, I was reading about this tree. Did you know that this, what's the name of this tree again? Help me. Cottonwood tree. I keep thinking dogwood. No, okay, cottonwood. Cottonwood. You know, I wanted to do this. I wanted to think I could put all that cotton together and make a pillow. I think I could do that. But you know, I was thinking about this cottonwood, and I read about it. Did you know that it says that if it could make it the first day, within the first day, it grows a 1/4 inch. Then it says it struggles after that. Birds, you know, it's highly nutritious a little bit, and people try all sorts of things. And you know what it said? It came around and said, most aren't going to make it. They're just going to die. Something's going to happen. Pick them, whatever it may be. But they says the one, it tries to get a source of water, and it uses all of its energy to try to drill down to get a source of water. That's why it likes the creek back here. It's around marshy areas. It goes down, the roots go down, and if it could penetrate and find a source of water, look out. There's a good chance it might make it. Now listen, some of you, you're wondering how it's going to work out. But let me tell you something. Some good seeds are dropping your way in your life. Some things are happening, and it's hard for you to understand. When I'm looking at my life, today I'm here. I'm not perfect. I got problems. Ask my kids. There's things I do wrong. But listen, I've come a long way. I'm not locked up. I'm not dead like 3 or 4 of my friends of a heroin overdose, and I'm not making fun. I'm just saying, I beat some of those addictions. Now, here's what I want to say to you. What are you looking at in your life you don't think you can get over, But God's saying, you prayed a prayer. I remember hitchhiking along 80 by myself and being out there at 2, 3 in the morning, sitting on my duffel bag, someone coming by, and this, and sitting there, and in the middle of Utah, praying, Lord, crying, can you help me? I'm a nobody. I'm lost. Can you give me a life? Now listen, those are seeds. Some of you prayed, maybe not that same prayer, but a similar prayer. Somebody's prayed a prayer for you. Someone has kind of been in the gap for you. Those are seeds flying through the air. Those are things that you're wondering, can they ever land? Can they ever take root? God is saying to you, yeah, a lot of it isn't going to work out. But it takes one thing to work out that can change your life. That can somehow get you. You know what? I got in this rehab, and this ain't about this. I just want to help us this morning a little bit. And forgive me for saying about, I didn't mean to be interruptive there, but I got to get these thoughts out so that it somehow could help us this morning. But I remember thinking that, can it ever work? Some of you are here, can it ever work in my faith? Listen, you're here this morning. There's success going on in your life, and you don't even know it. You're thinking ever going to get over it. Something is drilling down. That seed has been found some soil, and it's trying to find water. You're finding water here this morning. And I kind of think when it comes to faith, it's going to make it in your life. I kind of think because you're here, you made it out, you've weathered all the things that come against you, that you've drilled down, you found a water source. You're going to make mistakes. Now listen, sometimes you're going to have good months, bad months, you might drop out of church a while, whatever it may be, hope you don't. But you're going to stay with God because God is staying with you. You said, I remember driving up this hill, and all we did, I was part of this program, really a program, a drug rehab. You know what we did? This is like an old-fashioned program. All we did is work and go to church. Wow, what a program. We're on top of a mountain. But I remember driving up, and I was a baker by trade, my family owned bakeries. But here, all we did is chop wood and set chokes and pull trees up and cut them down. That's enough to keep you off drugs for a while. All you did is work 15 hours a day. But I was there, I was driving up, and I said to myself, my life is never going to be the same. I just knew it. When I got high again, I'd start thinking about the Lord. Nobody ever wanted to get high with me again. You know why? Because I'd start talking about the Lord. I bummed everybody out. I'd be in a bar, I'd turn on the Christian TV. And I know that's bad, but I was just a bummer to be around. I was dropping friends pretty quick. Now here's what I want to say. I knew I was different. Here's what I want to say for you. Some of you are thinking nothing's going on in your life. But God says, I got you in the palm of my hand, and I'm working it out. And you're thinking that all the different things, the 25 million things, that 24,999 is not worked out. But listen, let me tell you something. There is something working out in your life, and God is bringing you through. Okay, I got to hurry. I spent too much time. Family. Now, what does family mean? I clump that together in relationships. A wife. Some of you need a companion. Some of you want to share life with. I remember in Bible college, trying to, oh Lord, could you find me someone? We believed in missionary dating back then. What's missionary dating? Like Joe would say to Victoria, just try to find someone, and then if they weren't a Christian, convert them after you marry them. No, missionary dating. But listen, for us, and sitting around, we would say, us guys and Bible college, oh, does the Lord have anyone? And, try this, seek this one, but nothing ever worked out for me. But I remember someone, now this is for someone this morning, but I remember, they asked me to go to this kids camp. And it was there at this kids camp that I didn't want to go to. That's where I met Sue. She was from the same church I was attending in the Bible college, a small church. But I met her down there. Now here's what I want to say for you. Some of you are wondering how family is going to work out for you, a relationship. You don't need 10 women or 10 men. Lord have mercy on us. That's a lot to support, isn't it? But you need one. You need God to bring by one person for you. God can do that for you. I understand you're wondering, how's it going to happen? He says, do not let your hearts be troubled. Some of you are troubled because you're fighting addictions. You don't think you're going to get over it. You don't think you could serve God. But I got news for you. God has marked your life. You are going to make it. Listen, some of you fighting family. How are my kids going to, how are they going to live for the Lord? How am I going to find that person? And he says, don't let your hearts be troubled. Trust God. Can you trust God this morning? Can you trust God for what he has for you? I'm convinced God has, if you want a spouse, I'm convinced God has somebody for you. I don't know how. I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know. But I know if you keep drilling down and find that source, that water source, like that one of those seedlings, you tap into it, start to grow, God will get you to where you need to be. God will allow, somehow when you are at your last rope, God will have a divine connection for you somehow. God will get you there. God knows how. He says, don't let your hearts be troubled. He was worried that we were worried about these things, that we would drop out of life, that we would somehow get so discouraged, we don't see it happening, and we would check out. That's a tactic of the enemy this morning. Quickly, finances. Sorry for wasting enough on here, but finances, some of us, finances are dear to us. I just picked 4 things that I thought make up our pie chart of our life, that we get troubled with, that we have a hard time trusting with, that we have a hard time believing that it's going to work out in a positive way. God wants to help you this morning. Finances. You know, I remember when there was a transition, the economy, remember, was it 2008, a downturn? We had all these years where housing went up and all things. It was like the sky was the limit. We all knew it couldn't last forever. Houses were doubling and ridiculous. But I remember when your cousin became president. You remember that? Wave your hand. I was like, yeah, okay, it was a joke. But I remember, listen. No, that's a joke. Listen, here. All right, you with me, Aaron? Okay. Now listen. But I remember, the little money I had, I didn't have much money. But, I had a donut shop years ago, and I sold it. Some guy gave us a little money for it. We have bakeries around Illinois, and so I decided after Bible college to put one together. That's all I knew. I wasn't making any money at preaching. As you could tell, I need to improve a little bit. But here I went back, and during after Bible college, I put this together. Some rich guy offered me some money. I said, yeah, do you want me to open up another one for you? And 2, you want 2? No, but he paid it, and I always had to invest it a little bit so I could live off of some of the proceeds to kind of take the edge off. That's how we got to China. We were self-supporting in China, and we've always kind of made our own way in our family a little bit and did what we want to do with the Lord. But then after the downturn and a different transition, I never believed in the stock market. The little I had, it wasn't a lot. I put it all in there. I lost 30% in 1 month. Some of you know those days when everything was collapsing. And I knew I probably shouldn't have done that anyway. And it wasn't, I'm joking around, it wasn't this person's fault or this person. I just wanted to throw that in. I thought it was humorous when I was preparing it. But I lost, and I pulled it out, and then I put it somewhere else that I thought was probably good. And did you know? It worked out. Nothing great, but it worked out. Here's my point to you. Some of you have lost financially. As a matter of fact, you are going to have trouble financially. But it only takes one thing to work for you to change your whole life around in a better way. Now, here's what I want to say to you. I want to give someone hope today. Some of you have been through some things, and you tried this job, it hasn't worked out. And like me, I thought, wow, all that hard work, and 30% in 1 month. I knew I shouldn't have put the Lord's money like this, and where I'm the Lord's, and into an unworthy thing like that, into the world system. But I did, because I didn't want to go back to work with my hands in that way. I wanted something easier. But then the Lord showed another way and it worked out. Here's what I want to say. God's going to show some of you another way to help you get back to where you need to be. God's going to have a way of restoring. Listen, remember that tree? 25 million seeds flying through. But it only takes one here or two to double itself. Turn it. I guarantee, out of those 25 million that came off the tree, I guarantee at least a couple trees are going to make it. Here's what I want to say. Some of you are thinking, you're wondering how it's going to make it. God's going to get you there. God's going to say, don't be troubled about your finances. Here, I remembered there was like, for 2 days, I didn't want to get out of bed. Now, I've never been rich, but it was all I had, and, I depended on it to, because I never really made a salary doing this, and I had to always work on the side. But then to have 30%, listen, God's brought that 30% and more back since then. Listen, God's going to bring it back to you. God's going to help you get to where you need to be. Don't be troubled. The enemy wants you to be troubled about your faith. You're wondering how you're going to get over it. You're wondering how you're going to meet that person, how you're going to have the family, the life that you believe that you want. Finances, quickly, future. And I am done. You're supposed to set that alarm off. Did you? Okay. Future. I just gave illustrations to each one of these things and, try to. What's that? Oh, you say that now. But future. All of us want a good future. Tell me anybody in this room that don't get troubled by your future. As a matter of fact, every one of you get troubled by every one of these things. Let's be honest. This is what causes problems and things and discouraged. We drop out of church, all these different things. God wants you to be strong this morning. Future. All of us want a good future when we think about our vocation. Now, what do I mean future? Vocation, job, future. You want a bright future. There's nothing wrong with that. I hope you don't want a dark future. You want a bright future. I remember coming back from Hawaii. When I was in Hawaii, I was a presbyter. That's the denomination I was a part of, and over lots of different churches around Honolulu. I was a big shot for a little bit of time. And I'm joking about big shot. And, I was running this ministry, Teen Challenge, over the state. But then I got in a run-in with the superintendent. Did you know there's politics in denominational religion too? And I backed the wrong horse. I backed this horse, but this one won in the voting. Some of you are saying, what does that mean? But okay. But then I knew, because I was vocal, Erwin, people knew where I stood, and I knew that if this guy won, I was history. I remember the first board meeting I went, and there was a group of us ministers, and because I was part of the denominational board, this guy that was elected now superintendent, he just kind of went after me, and I walked out of the meeting. And I went home and I said, Sue, we're done. This guy has all the power now. We backed the wrong horse. I'm just telling you, the guy's going to go after me. Well, to make a long story, created division. He called in a staff member, and things started going south a little bit. I remember coming back here, and you know the story a little bit, and coming back here thinking I didn't have much of a future. Here, one day, things were going good. Next day, falling on my face. But then one day, Joel's mom and I had a conversation. Didn't even know who Joel was. I thought, matter of fact, the lawyer told me, if you don't fight this thing, you better take off your collar. You could tell he was Catholic. I don't wear a collar. He said, you better fight it with us. I said, I'm tough, but I don't want to fight. And I backed off. I decided just to try to work things out, and but here, didn't think anything was going. Some of you thinking you don't have a future. You've been through a hard spell. Someone's done you wrong. And you're troubled. You don't see how something's going to work out for you. You had a good future at one time. Good family, spouse, whatever. You're doing better in your walk, your finances, and you're troubled. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust God. Trust also me. Future. Then all of a sudden, out of the blue, I became friends there, and the mother invited me down to Houston, and I remember Joel in the hallway. Joel was just getting off the ground, took over his dad's church. He'd been there a few years, and Joel's mom said, Joel! I'm thinking, this is Pastor John, this is Pastor John. One of those things, I was like, who talking to? Oh, he's a great guy. Who's he talking to? But God had a way of divining, putting something together. He did a little video right in the hall for us right then. I did a little video, and I felt like I was a nobody at the time. I put the video on the website. Preacher after preacher said, how did he get that video? How did he get that video with Pastor Joel? How did he get that? Listen, God knows how to get you to where you need to be. When you think all is lost, when you think you don't have a future, God has some things flying through the air. God has some things, and it only takes one thing. It only takes one thing to work. Let me tell you something, and I close. I guarantee you, there's some seed in the ground in your life, in every area that you can't even see, that's germinating right now, that God has in the palm of his hand in your life, that's drilling down to that water source, and it's getting fed, it's getting nurtured, it's coming to life. And God is going to do it for you, my brother, my sister. I don't know how, but he's going to do it. You're going to look back and you're going to say, God is faithful. God is a good God. God is a God that helps me. Listen, stay in the fight. Stay in the fight. You know what? They could give me that back there, and now I'd say, that's a demotion. Not really, I guess, but are you with me? You're going to look back and you say, God was with me all the time. God was in charge all the time. I want to encourage you like Jesus did. Don't let your hearts be troubled. You're thinking there's no one out there for you? Yeah, I understand. Give me $100, I'll find somebody for you. No, that's a joke. Listen, God has someone out there for you. Keep praying the prayer. Keep drilling down. Keep doing what you know to do. Keep coming to church. Keep being faithful. Keep trusting God. Don't let the enemy ruin what God is doing in your life. Keep sowing. Keep living life. Get up one more day. Try it again. Say the prayer one more time, and God will bring you through. Father, bless your people, I pray. Help them. Work it out in their life. If there's someone here that says, I need Jesus in my life. If there's someone here that say, I need God. If that's you, raise your hand. If that's you, raise your hand. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. Father, let's all pray this together. I love you. I need you.